Sure.
Hello, somebody called my phone just a few minutes ago.
Yeah, is this Derek?
Yes.
Hey, yeah, that was myself. We were supposed to have an interview for the Lumen Field Service Associate at 9:30.
Yeah, I was on the Teams meeting and I didn't hear anything from anybody. So I reached out to the recruiter.
Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, we were on there with our panel.
Right.
We waited
Yeah,
just until
yeah,
minutes ago.
I joined at 9:28 a.m. and I clicked the link and I waited for about 10 minutes and nobody was there.
Uh, Interesting. So I sent you an email to your Gmail, and I sent you an email to that as well. Um, so let me reach out to my panelists, see if they're still available,
Okay, no problem.
and I'll give you a call back.
Okay, yeah, I don't see an email here, but let me check in the spam and
Yeah, it would have come from Hunter.
yeah, I don't see anything there. Interesting. Okay. Hmm. All
Just
right.
make sure what's the right email address. Um, so I have DERE. Looks like there's no hiring. Let me resend it to the correct one.
Oh, so it was sent to the incorrect one.
It went to uh, Peason, PEASON.
Oh, okay. So that was the reason. Okay, I see.
Right. So let me give you a call back here in a little bit. See if I can get my panel back on.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Thanks, Derek.
Thank you. Yeah. Um, Incompetence at best. I didn't really care for that. So yeah. So let's see if the panel they sent. Eh, I don't know. It says high importance. Yeah, that was on them. And you trying to play it on me, and no, that was on y'all. So let's see what they talking about. I'll keep recording on the next one, you guys. So we'll see. Hello, Derek speaking.
Hear me all right?
Yeah, I could hear you. My Bluetooth was acting up.
Hey, are we able to reschedule for like tomorrow?
Let's see here. Yeah, that should be. Let's see. Could we do the same time?
I have availability. I can check with my panel to make sure they have that time open as well. And then I'll send you an email with the updated information.
Okay, that'll work.
All right, I appreciate it, and hope you have a good rest of your day. And hopefully, I can get this scheduled for tomorrow.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, that was some BS. Very unprofessional. I didn't like dude's energy. All these little, well, whatever. Let me see. Let me check on this other one, because remember what I told y'all about that one where they were like, oh, we're so interested in everything, and they picked somebody else, and look, now they're doubling back. So I'm gonna see what's up with them real quick. Hold on.
Yep. Hey, good morning.
Good morning. Hey, how you doing?
Doing well. How about
Doing
yourself?
well.
Doing good. Doing good.
So I'll go ahead and introduce you to the panel. I am manager and hiring manager of Field Tech Services for this Field Service Associate position. We are joined by she is the management of Tech as a Service, and then we have Doug. He is manager of FIT and building extensions, and then we also have he is the Field Service Associate 3 on the team.
Nice to meet you.
You too.
Nice to meet you, sir. All right. Before we get started into this interview, it is structured. They're all the same questions, and we'll introduce you to how you're to respond to the questions. But before we get started, do you have any questions for us?
I have quite a few technical questions, but that probably would be something later on that I would address.
Okay. All right. Doug, hand it over to you.
Sounds good. So, Derek, appreciate you interviewing with us and your interest in Lumen, right? I don't know how much you know about Lumen, but appreciate your interest there. So like Hunter, is a structured interview, same questions across the board for all candidates. But what we're looking for is you to take that question that we present, take one example and explain it, right? So what the situation was, what you did to handle that situation, or what you did throughout it, and then what the outcome was. So
Okay.
Just take that one specific example, not just normally I do this or normally this happens, right? Take that one specific example.
Okay.
And any questions before we get started?
No questions.
Cool. Here we go. All right. So the first question's about plans and aligns. So planning and prioritizing work to meet commitments aligned with organizational goals. So the question is, describe a time you planned your activities to align with others' work on the team.
I could tell you, as me being a former Microsoft certification technical instructor for over 7 years, I was given the duty to pretty much have free range of designing the curriculum. I got well over 250 to 300 people certified within a 7-year time span for the 98366 certification. I also brought in different vendors and started managing some of those relationships, also working with the Microsoft data center out there in Edina, Minnesota. So, I was given free reign to create a curriculum. The goal was to get all of these people certified. I would say anywhere between 66 to 75% of the people that joined that course did in fact get certified, with well over 60% of the people getting employment as well. The whole goal of the program was to get people into the IT professional space. My job was to come in and really just use the certification curriculum, but I went above and beyond that, bringing people into using things such as pfSense Linux firewalls, Kali Linux, Azure, AWS, packet tracers, Wireshark, things of that nature.
And sorry, I forgot to mention, if there's this awkward silence, it's us trying to type and trying to write down everything that you say, since nothing's recorded.
Okay.
So that we can go back and review our notes when we're reviewing all the candidates. So if there's this awkward silence, don't think anything about it. It's just us trying to catch up.
Okay, no problem.
All right.
So just kind of a follow-up question. Why did you approach that project that way? What made you try and add curriculum, right? What sparked all that?
Well, to make a long story short, I was actually going to Metro State University, teaching kids about the Microsoft Imagine Academy. I was supposed to come in as just a guest speaker, to kind of, give the kids a different light on, a diverse background and, a diverse array of people that are in the information technology field. Initially, when I came aboard, there was supposed to be an instructor, but the instructor didn't show up. So every Saturday, I would come and I would speak, and they said, "Hey, do you want to be the instructor?" And I said, "Well, I haven't done it before." They said, "Well, you seem to be doing it." So there was already a curriculum for that. So when there was a nonprofit called the Osiris Organization, and they said, "Hey, can you do this for adults?" And I said, "Well, I'm not an instructor." And they said, "Well, you've been doing it for a year and everybody seems to like you. Can you design something for the 98-366 exam?" And I said, "Well, am I going to have creative control?" And they said, "Yeah, you're going to have 1,000%. You could do whatever you want. You don't have to go by the book whatsoever." So I pretty much took a lot of my experience as a Citrix administrator, because I was doing this as a Citrix administrator as well. I was doing this on the side. So I pretty much took all of the years of my experience and everything that I've learned in terms of things like VirtualBox and virtualization technologies and things of that nature, and I kind of incorporated a lot of those real world things as opposed to just using the coursework itself, because my goal was to get the students jobs. I mean, the certification, that was a main goal, but my job was to, my personal goal was to get people in the IT infrastructure world, which I did. So that was why I used that approach.
Perfect. I appreciate it. Any other follow-up questions?
Nope, none here.
I'm good.
All right, Derek, that rolls over to me. So this topic is manages complexity. It's making sense of complex, high quantity, and sometimes contradictory information to effectively solve problems. So the question is, describe a time you were faced with a complex problem and had to get to the essence in a short time period.
I could give you an example when I worked at Flywheel as a software as a service tech. That was my first introduction to containerization technologies. I worked across the full life cycle management of the project. We were dealing with medical imaging software, so you're reproducing issues, you're dealing with Nifty, DICOM, HL7, all of those different formats. There really was no standard operating procedure, being that it was a startup. On that contract, I kind of came aboard, and you pretty much had to kind of put the pieces together in a way. We were dealing with the back end of Docker and Kubernetes and things of that nature. So it wasn't a ton of information besides runbooks. So let's say if a pod goes down or there's something that happens with AWS, they didn't really use virtual machines. You pretty much had to kind of lean on some of the software engineers and ask questions. I look at a lot of troubleshooting methods in a codified manner. And with that being said, when you look at codes, it either works or it doesn't work. So asking the right questions and knowing what questions to ask the right people.
You have like one example that you could talk about?
When it comes to like the pager duty and dealing with the run books, when we were supporting the software, we had to do implementations from some of the if you guys are familiar with Kubernetes, it kind of works like the Star Trek board. So we have to push these applications through like YAML files and things of that nature. So if you're going to be using Docker or Kubernetes, typically what people use is Terraform. So me having to learn Terraform, that was a complex example. Did you need further elaboration on that, or? In terms of the deployments?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to explain that, that'd be great.
Okay, so the deployments, people typically start out with like 1.0, and then they could upgrade to like 2.0 or 3.0 in terms of upgrades. So we had several different hospitals, several different clinical physicians and people that use the software. So each week we would create, we would use Jira, and we would write what they call user stories. So if there's an issue with the software, we would reproduce the issue, and then what we would do is, we would pass it along to the software engineers, and then they would modify some of the YAML files, and then we would push the upgrades. So sometimes with the upgrades, like I said, a lot of it wasn't documented. So you had to use some of the run books that some of the previous engineers had, and some of those are not updated.
Did you write those user stories, or did you write those Jira stories?
We wrote the Jira stories, but we did not write the run books. The run books were created by the platform engineers. The user stories would be something like, let's say there's an enhancement or a request, or for example, like with Kubernetes and GitLab, they have what they call like bridges. So some of the code might tell a hard drive to expand a little bit more. And there'll be these pipelines. So let's say a pipeline breaks, or let's say somebody puts the wrong piece of information. You'd have to go back in there. You'd have to look at the YAML file. You might edit it. You might work with some of the other engineers and say, okay, do we need something else that needs to be put in there? And in terms of the user stories, if there's an enhancement request from the customer, if they say, well, we want to be able to see X-rays a little easier, then you can make an enhancement request. You write that user story in Jira, and then you just kind of, move it along. We'd have 2 week. It would be an agile environment. We'd have 2 week sprints. So we would go back and look at the user story. If in fact it wasn't pushed along, it might be in a backlog.
Yeah, we're the same sprints, Jira stories, right? So Lumen does it the same way.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
No questions for me. Anybody else? Any follow-ups?
Nope, I'm good.
All right.
Okay, Derek, that brings the next question over to me. So this next section is on communicating effectively. So thinking about delivering and developing multi-mode communication that conveys a clear understanding of the unique needs of different audiences. The question is, can you tell us about a time when others were missing the key points in a discussion and you helped to bring things back on track?
Yeah, I could actually go back into my technical instructor, career in that manner. I was training sometimes in between some people, in between 15 to 20 people sometimes. And then you're managing a lot of the relationships with the vendors as well too, because I had people from Splunk come in, I had people from Cisco come in, Microsoft. And a lot of times, to try not to use a lot of technical jargon at times, I would have students, some of them would already be in the IT industry and some of them would not. You might have some people that might want to come in and they might have a little more experience than others. So they start talking at maybe a higher level. So what I started doing is pairing people in groups, those that had less technical knowledge and those that had more technical knowledge. And so when it got a little bit too technical and they're talking about, well, the Cisco CCNA, I might steer that conversation back into, the Microsoft certification to dealing with like CIDR notation and, remote technology such as TeamViewer and some of the basic levels for the people that are entry level so they don't get overwhelmed.
Yeah, that's a good example. Any follow-up questions? Okay, thank you.
All right. Sorry about that. Writing up my notes here. All right. So next one's going to be with me here, Derek. So this question is going to be based around tech savvy, which clearly you seem to have down. So this one should be straightforward. It's basically anticipating and adopting innovations in business building, digital and technological applications. So the question here is, tell me about the biggest technological challenge you have ever had to overcome.
I would say that the biggest technological challenge that I would have to overcome was dealing with Citrix. When I came aboard working at Syntax as a Citrix administrator, that wasn't necessarily the title that they hired for. Citrix is kind of like a puzzle in a way. You have the SQL servers, you have 2016, you have at that time they were using 2008 VDIs. You might have Zen server, Zen app, Zen Center. So you have all these different, and then you got to deal with all these roaming profiles and things of that nature. So there's a lot of different pieces and the way that Citrix writes their documentation, it's implied. Even with the certifications, it's implied. So when they ask you a question, a lot of times it's something where they assume that you know. So I had to come in and read a lot of the documentation for the first couple months just to kind of get, an understanding of the Citrix microcosm. So that was pretty difficult coming in.
Okay. And can you clarify that as far as like how you overcame those challenges?
I'm gonna be honest, I just kept reading. I shadowed a lot of the different engineers. After the first 6 months, they started putting me on the front line, and then eventually I took over the managed services division. That was something that I had to do: run compliance reports, do patching, and things of that nature.
Awesome. All right, that's the only question I have. Anyone else?
No.
What was the final result of your learning it, right? Shadowing, all the different things you did. What was the final result of that?
Well, the company was awarded 3 state contracts. I can't say what specific department, but they were awarded state contracts in terms of some of the work I did.
Yeah.
Did you help others understand the complexities that you had encountered, and just kind of walk them through it or provide them any resources or anything?
In that environment, no, because all of the Citrix engineers they were above me 10 to 15 years. There's, not to sound undermining, but there's nothing I could have taught them, nothing whatsoever. It was the other way around. These guys were some of the best architects in the Midwest, and a leading company, in fact. So, I mean, I could tell some Game of Thrones jokes. That's about it. I had nothing to teach them,
Fair enough.
I taught them about where to go eat.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Nice.
Good restaurants. All right.
I guess it's any other questions?
All set.
Guess it's back to me now. So this is about values differences. So recognizing the value that different perspectives and cultures bring to an organization. So the question is, describe a time when you needed to build a relationship with someone very different from you.
I guess I could talk about when I was a desktop lead for AIG. Kind of earlier in my career, I did a lot of the Windows XP to Windows 7 migrations with, a lot of the insurance companies, Medica, Blue Cross, Blue Shield, AIG, Travelers. My last stint with AIG, I didn't work with project managers that much. So in terms of a difference, they had a different style. A whole lot of coffee, a lot of yelling. I kind of wasn't used to dealing with a team of project coordinators, and sometimes I would be in these email groups, and sometimes I would get emails to my phone. I don't know why I had the emails in terms of, because I was just on site for desktop, but because I worked with Dell through AIG, it was so many different project managers involved. They just decided to throw me on the list, and I guess they figured I'd want to get an email 4 a.m. So sometimes I would respond, and they'd be like, "Oh, Derek's up." Like, I can't. Like, the desktop guys, they don't usually respond. They're like, "Okay, well, this is way outside of my realm." But sometimes I will respond, and I will look at the spreadsheet to kind of see how the other deployments are going throughout the United States. So that kind of won me a little bit of admiration amongst the C-level suites there, because one of the things I was able to do was I was able to kind of, sit down in rooms with some of the project managers when they're making decisions. This is something that I don't typically see in a desktop environment. You don't get to really sit with the executives and sit with the PMs, so I kind of seen that there was a different way of them going about doing things, really, really fast paced. They weren't really talking too much about the technology. So it was an adjustment for me. To really talk more so about numbers and results, as opposed to just, whether this doesn't work and, why it doesn't work, and, how many, laptops we'll need and things of that nature.
So do you have one specific individual that you had to build a relationship with out of that group?
Yeah, one of the senior PMs, he was different because he was always running all over the place, and I was kind of used to saying, okay, you got A, B, and C to do, and then he just has everything to do. So, I had to kind of adjust to that learning style working with him.
So Derek,
Go
ahead, Doug.
Tammy. Go for it, Tammy.
No, I was going to say, let's just thinking about building that relationship. Did you have the approach with that? Did you set up some individual time with him to kind of break that out? Or were you having, was it creating any complications with your work because of the differences there? Like, how did you go about building that relationship with him? Was it more individualized meetings, things like that?
I sat on a lot of meetings with them. It was in fact so many meetings that I sat that, it started to take a little time away from my deployment work. But what I realized is because he said, I want you to get into the mindset of a PM. What he was actually doing was he was kind of mentoring me. And I didn't really know it at that time. I thought it was just, okay, well, here's just a set of variables. But when he seen that, he told me, he said, you have certain leadership qualities. He said, you're not supposed to be stuck behind a desk installing computers. And I was like, well, I like the tech stuff or whatever. And he was like, no, I'm going to show you how it's done. And so and that was kind of his approach. What he was basically trying to do is get me into the project coordination aspect. So, that adjustment was, I had to kind of sit back and just kind of soak up like a sponge, and actually that kind of helped me run a lot of the deployments a lot better, because taking myself away from a lot of the hands-on more so. I had liked the technology, and he was trying to strip me of that and say, well, all right, no, have those guys do it, because I was the team lead. When I came on, I wasn't supposed to be the team lead. One of the team leads that trained us he just didn't show up. And so they said, all right, well, you're the team lead. And so they just handed me a laptop with a bunch of spreadsheets and said, all right, well, do 20-30% support, but you run this project, and I'm gonna help you run it. So I didn't have individual time to really sit with him. I mean, it wasn't like a specific little 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there. No, he had me kind of running around from meeting to meeting to meeting, with him every day. And then eventually he just turned me loose, and then, and then I just kind of just took it there.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate the elaboration there.
Any other questions, follow-ups?
Tammy stole mine, so we're good.
All right, that leads it back to me. So this one is nimble learning. Actively learning through experimentation when tackling new problems, using both successes and failures as learning fodder. So the question is, tell me about a time you analyzed a mistake or failure in order to promote team learning.
Oh, let me see here. I could say that, when I was at Veritas as a technical support engineer, when I came aboard, a lot of the other people didn't really want to use Docker and Kubernetes. So what I started doing is a lot of the engineers that had been there for 15, 20 years, they were just really doing a lot of just a regular tape support, a little bit of cloud, but more so on the tape side. So what I started to do is the little bit of experience that I had, I started working with some of the sales engineers, and I started, volunteering on proof of concept cases. So some of the older guys that wanted to kind of get into cloud and wanted to deal with, some of the containerization software, they started joining some of the meetings. So I was kind of explaining to them that, well, at this point, proof of concept, we're there not to necessarily fix the problem. We're just showing the customer, these are the capabilities of the software. These are the appliances we can use. And then, in terms of licenses and stuff, that would be on the sales team to kind of develop that. So what I started to do is I started to grab those containerization software cases, and then I started including some more senior engineers. So that was kind of a learning experience for them, if that's an example.
Okay. So what would you say that the mistake would be that you learned about or analyzed to promote learning within the groups or different groups?
I think that I probably should have tapped some more of the sales engineers or the some of the sales engineers that would have had a little bit more cloud experience, and that probably would have made the proof of concept cases a little bit better. The interesting part about that is Veritas was just starting to move to the cloud with a lot of their customers. A lot of their customers were still dealing with a lot of local stuff. So, maybe leveraging more of the cloud team, to be a part, to emphasize on those proof of concept cases. Would that be an example?
I'd say so. All right. Any other questions? Follow-ups? All right. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you.
Tammy, you're muted.
Helps if I'm not on mute. Derek, this last question is over to me, and it is on customer focus. So thinking about building strong customer relationships and delivering customer-centric solutions. So can you tell us about a time when you went the extra mile for a challenging customer?
Well, I could take this all the way back before, let me see. This was around 2008. How I started, and I'll try to make this very short. How I started my first career, how I got into IT, I came in through an internship for the Crystal Ray Jesuit High School through the Colin Powell Center in South Minneapolis. If you guys are from Minnesota, you will know what I'm talking about, but if you're not, you probably wouldn't. So I did that internship for a year, and then after that, I decided to open up, a store. So, I sold clothes, I did computer repair and things of that nature. Going the extra mile, I would tell you that around that time, Geek Squad was charging anywhere between $300 to $500. It was just outrageous prices. And being like the neighborhood computer shop, I was charging $100. But the same people kept coming into the store with viruses. They would be on, nefarious sites, and they'd be downloading all this crazy stuff. And every time they come back, they say, hey, my kid caught a virus because they were playing games and things of that nature. And I said, all right, I'm probably not going to make any more money with this customer. I'm going to install Fedora. Or it was like Ubuntu, I believe, at that time. No more viruses. Ever. I would say that's going the extra mile because I pretty much sacrificed, multiple sales going forward because I knew they were going to keep on getting viruses on their Windows platform. But I said, well, do you mind if I try something different? And they're like, well, I don't know how to use Linux. I said, well, I'll show you. So I sat down with 30 minutes and showed them how to, kind of use it. And the result of that is they didn't get any more viruses. Not to say that Linux doesn't have them, but, around that time with them going on, gaming sites and all that kind of stuff, that doesn't typically happen with Ubuntu. You don't typically have problems. So that would be going the extra mile.
And did you ever have that customer coming back? I imagine not.
You know what? They brought me more desktops. They brought me some of their friends and family and said, hey, do you want a computer that's like virus free? And I said, don't tell them that they can't get a virus. You're not probably going to get a virus on Ubuntu. They make them, but you're probably, going on like the sites, they just wanted to go on like, PBS Kids. I don't know, like some kind of little, them little janky gaming sites that, they warn you if you're going to get antivirus 2009. There's no such thing as antivirus 2009 on a Linux machine. It's just not even going to run. So they started bringing a lot of their family and friends over there and say, hey, get a virus-free computer. And I just said, well, if they want to run with that, fine. And so they started bringing other people to say, hey, can you install Ubuntu on here? And I did.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you. Any follow-up questions?
I'm all set over here.
Okay.
All right. Derek, thank you for your time. And thank you for joining us on the interview. So that was the last question from us. So what do you have to ask us?
Can you speak to the company culture and the training learning curve of this position and a day in the life?
So as far as the training that we do, so I'll start with the training, and then I can let Doug culture. But here he is the trainer, and we take 2 weeks to get you all ramped up. So the team is 24/7, 365. But right now the structure of the schedules is 4/10s, and the holidays are voluntary. But there is a training schedule to get you ramped up in all of our systems that we operate in. There's circuit training that Trevor runs through as well, and just to get you a general consensus of what our group does and how to do it. So essentially what FTS is a call center, in essence, to field requests from enterprise customers and go out or dispatch a field technician to fix their equipment, or troubleshoot their equipment, or it can even be locate their equipment or receive a shipment for them. So our team is essentially the middleman or middle person for the customers and our enterprise field operations.
Okay. So a day in the life would be taking a call, an enterprise customer. So it wouldn't be like a residential customer. It would all be business enterprise. So they'll call and say, we need someone to install fiber optic at this data center or something like that.
Yeah, so that specific example would be more so
Service
of
delivery.
a project and service delivery. We're building extensions for like Doug's team. But say that they had a piece of equipment go down. They would either call us or email us. We primarily work out of a shared inbox, and they would explain what they're experiencing, and we would engage our field operations, enterprise field operations, to go out to the data center and troubleshoot their issue.
Okay, so somewhat of a dispatch, if you would say.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we are a dispatch.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay. What would you say? What technical qualifications are you? I mean, I read the description, but what is pretty much the? I guess in terms of the learning curve, like what is the scope and the stop point of in terms of troubleshooting layer 1, layer 2, 3?
There's
Sure,
no, yeah. Technically, we don't really have any capabilities or responsibilities as far as troubleshooting the issues go. That's going to be with the network operations center. So if for instance, if there's a circuit down, the customer reports that to them first, and they do a remote investigation, try to identify what the issue is. If they see everything clear on the Lumen network, then they'll refer it over to us to charge the customer to dispatch and prove that it's up, if that's what the customer wants, and they authorize charges. So our focus is strictly billable remote hands. Anything that they want us to do on their behalf, customers will contact us directly. Generally, most of the work is going to come through email. It is a call center environment, but we don't get back-to-back calls. It's extremely rare, depending on what our staff numbers look like. So it's mostly through email, which is pretty low key. But your technical background is it's mostly going to be focused around circuits and what equipment might be on site, so we can assist the field with identifying what they need to work on. But even that is kind of going a little bit out of our scope. I try to give as much knowledge as I can. A lot of it's self-taught. So basically anything that I have over the years that I can give anyone to be more successful in the position, that's kind of what the training will be focused around. But yeah, there's no remote like layer 1 investigation or anything like that. That's all strictly between the field and the NOC. So
okay, and two focal questions. What shift would this be, or what are the hours you guys are looking for?
So right now, we don't have a specific spot in our schedule to put you in. Once we get everybody all in, I have to go back through and update the schedule to kind of fit around the headcount numbers at certain times. But the main hours that our team is focused around is 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. Central Time.
Okay.
And that's when the bulk of our team comes in. All but one, really.
Okay. You said 4 a.m. to 8 p.m.? Or 4 a.m. to
8 p.m. Central.
8 p.m.
Yep.
Okay.
But you would just have a 10-hour shift within
Right.
that, right? So it's 4 10s is what they're currently working.
Yep.
So you would be scheduled Monday through Thursday or Tuesday through Friday, right? Or something along those lines, just a 10-hour shift within that.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. And then we do have a rotation for on-call to cover the weekends. So the on-call weekend starts at 8 p.m. on Friday night and ends technically at 3:59 Monday morning. But that'll be once you're fully up and trained and running and operating on your own, have all the questions that you need answered, stuff like that. So we wouldn't put you into the rotation until you're ready.
Okay, so if you were like on-call rotation and let's say you were at church or you're at the playground or whatever, and then you get a call, would you like bring your laptop with you and then run back somewhere or?
Yeah, you would be expected to have your laptop on you,
Okay.
so you could assist. The calls, I mean, Trevor just got off of his on-call weekend, but you don't typically get too many calls, and they're specified for emergencies only. Is when the customer will follow through on that process to call the on-call person. And we do have a notification system built to notify your phone through Teams of any emails that hit the shared inbox, so you can preview them and verify the severity and urgency of that email.
Okay. And you mentioned you guys asked me a question about user stories. Do we write user stories through Jira?
No,
Okay.
I was just asking because I mean that's the process we use as a company. I just didn't know if how you were involved with that. So that was all that was.
Okay.
And back to your question. Sorry, back to your question on culture, right? So I just wanted to make sure that I answered that for you. So there's a couple of things, right? So we are very big on growth, right? So I can speak for myself personally. I've been here 13 years now. I started out as a technician 13 years ago. Went in as a supervisor, right, and then into a management role, into planning engineering, and now into this senior manager role. And the growth opportunities are great. We do hold people accountable, right? It's about taking ownership. But I mean, it's a great culture. We're in this whole transformation with cloud and with AI. I don't know how much you've seen about Lumen, right? But we've been signing some pretty big contracts, right, for AI. And so we're growing the company. And I feel like it's been a great company to work for. About her experiences, and I know she's been around a while as well.
Yeah, sure. So I will be coming up in October with the company. A lot of growth opportunities. We have a really robust training within our just our own curriculum within the company. So if there's things that you're interested in, there's a lot of opportunities there to take advantage of that with training that we have internally within Lumen. We also have, I mean, really this embracement of teamwork, trust, and transparency. And, not to be afraid of making mistakes, but using that as, a very, as a learning opportunity. And we have just been going through Dare to Lead. So there's a lot of focus on just everybody kind of taking that armor off and really meeting each other where they are. Not, that finger pointing and kind of environment, but hey, let's really collaborate, work together, and figure out how we get it done together as a team. So we've seen transformation within our culture and really embracing that 3 T's of teamwork, trust, and transparency.
Okay. And I guess my final question is, what do the next steps look like in this process?
You may take that.
This is my first time.
So we have a few more interviews to finish up. I think a couple more this week. Once we finish the interviews, this panel will sit down. We'll go through all of our interview notes, and then or somebody will reach out one way or another to let you know. We are moving pretty quickly with this one, so we need to get this filled quickly. So I wouldn't think more than a couple weeks, and then you should have an answer.
Okay. I really enjoyed this experience, and I would like to continue the conversation, and I appreciate you guys' time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
You have a great rest of
Have
your
a
day.
good day. Nice meeting you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye. All right. So post analysis on that. They asked a bunch of questions, and this is a dispatch position. So, the kind of questions they asked was kind of crazy. They're basically saying it's dispatch, so yeah, they asking for too much for too little.